Today's gospel provides us with part skills training and part pep talk. Skills training because Jesus teaches his disciples how to pray. One of them notices that Jesus himself is praying, and when he finishes, asks, "Lord, teach us to pray." Then Jesus gives them a prayer that we refer to as the Lord's Prayer. It's a prayer we all know by heart, and we recite it almost every time we gather together. Prayer is a skill we all could improve. It's not just about memorizing prayers, there are plenty of them, or finding the time to pray. We are all so busy that it is easy to have the intention to pray, but struggle to find the time to do it. And then, when we find the time, learning how not to be distracted is another skill we need, like during Mass, like some of you are doing right now. Sometimes we get too ambitious with prayer. It sounds funny, actually, to say that. I mean, how can a faithful Catholic be too ambitious when it comes to prayer? But what I mean to say is that we often bite off more than we can chew, and we set our expectations too high, and then we fail. For example, I went through a period of dryness in prayer in the seminary, and my spiritual director suggested that I pray privately for 2 minutes a day. Now, at first it sounded woefully inadequate and remedial for someone who was discerning the priesthood to pray for only 2 minutes a day. So, taking the advice of my spiritual director, I tried it, and to be honest, I thought those 2 minutes would never end. Eventually, though, those 2 minutes grew, and soon I was praying for longer periods of time, and my prayer was more fruitful. Start small and set expectations for prayer within parameters that you can accomplish, and you will find success. Now, the pep talk part of today's gospel comes to us in the form of a parable. Jesus says, on one hand, that we should never give up and keep doing good despite the obstacles or the struggles we face. And on the other hand, the person in the parable who is asking for the loaves of bread is not asking for himself, but for a friend who arrived unannounced at his house from a journey. It is one thing to be persistent in the things that we want or the goals that we set for ourselves, but it is something altogether different when we are persistent for the good of others. According to our Catholic worldview, a well-lived life is a life lived for others. Those of you who are married know this all too well. The success of a marriage is when you are willing to set yourself aside for the good of your spouse, so that he or she may flourish and you together grow in love, in commitment before God. Now, this attitude of living for not oneself flies in the face of our culture's understanding of a life well lived, because it promotes the accumulation of material goods and competition, self-promotion, and isolation. But we know that our life does not belong to us. Our life is not ultimately about ourselves at all, but rather about serving God and others, particularly the poor and the marginalized. If we translate this into the work of the church, then we Christians can never rest, because there are countless opportunities to be persistent for the good of others in a nation that is deeply divided. And in a world that is at war, we have a golden opportunity to work for unity and peace and defend the dignity and the sanctity of all human life. We must demonstrate, as Catholic men and women, our total commitment to being pro-life by providing real and tangible support and solutions to women who find themselves in crisis pregnancies beyond just the birth of their children. To advocate for the abolishment of capital punishment, to have a serious dialogue followed by concrete action to address acts of violence in our culture as it relates to mental health, the state of families, the valuation of life, and the importance of community, the influence of entertainment and gaming industries, social media, bullying, and the availability of firearms. We need to accept all people as they are, while holding to our beliefs that God created us male and female, and that we are created. We are not the creator. And we do all of this while still feeding the poor and working for justice and caring for those who suffer from illness and addiction. We must ask, seek, and knock until all life is respected and valued from the womb to the tomb. The skills we need to live our faith with integrity is seen in the image of God that we hear about in the first reading today. He desires the salvation of sinners. He wants to show us mercy. He wants us to know him and to love him. His love for us is always on the forefront of his mind. We also find an example of how to live in Jesus Christ, who laid down his life for each of us. He redeems us by his sacrifice on the cross. He forgives us by his mercy and reconciliation. He unites us with him in prayer, inspires us by his faithfulness to the will of the Father, and gives us good gifts over and over again, and invites us to do the same for others. My brothers and sisters, ask, seek, and knock, and the door will be opened. And be persistent in showing the love of God to everyone we meet.